Why are you staying in a job where you have to be there all day when you can leave and we can build this together? You don't have to ask for vacation. You don't have to ask for time off.
Because if you start the business, like worst case scenario, right? You start the business and it doesn't work out. You go back to what you were doing.
So starting Instagram, and then like people actually started like contacting us too. They're like, oh, can you come give me an estimate? And I was like, oh, this is working. Like, find something that you're good at, find something that you're passionate about, and like turn it into a business. Like anybody can do it. Like you just have to believe that you can do it, and you have to do it. Like I would always be like, huh? Like how does that happen? You've like spent all this time together.
And it is the one thing we don't share with other people.
I'm here sharing inspiring stories about fearless entrepreneurial women to help encourage you to live your life unapologetically. I'm your host, Heather Blankenship. Welcome to the Unapologetically Me podcast.
On today's episode, I'm going to be chatting with Miss Reauna Lopez. And y'all, she is one of the most amazing ladies I've ever met. Her and her husband own a construction company in California. They own long-term rentals. And listening to her story about how she was so scared to leave a job that she loved and join her husband in this real estate venture is mind-boggling to me because she's so great at it now. I could have never imagined that she struggled in the beginning. So you don't want to miss this episode. Reauna, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to talk with you because we've known each other for a few years, but I don't think we've ever had like really in-depth conversations.
Right.
Because we're always at an event where there's like some kind of constant interruption.
Yeah.
And the first time that it was the second time I met you in person, and I had always admired like how beautiful your hair is. Like your hair totally stands out. It's like amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Even when you put it up, it's like so pretty. And we were in Tennessee, and I was like, I love your hair. What ethnicity are you? And you told me.
Yeah.
You said?
I said I'm half black, half Chinese.
And I was like, oh my gosh, my baby's half Chinese. And the lady next to us was like, how?
I remember that.
I'm like, my husband's Chinese. What do you mean how?
We were both like,
And that was like my first memory of like us having like a real conversation. But there's so much to what you do, because not only do you buy rentals, you and your husband run a construction company, which a lot of times when women say that, it's actually that their husbands run a construction company, and you're truly involved in the day-to-day of the business. And that's pretty unique, seeing women who are involved in that.
Yeah.
How does that work? Do you feel different on job sites? Do people treat you differently? Or is that just in my mind that like it would be really tough to be a female running a construction job site?
You know what? So I think when I am on the job sites, I don't ever like correct the team. So like most of the team, like, you know, the guys doing the work, they're men. Actually, all of them are. We don't have any women. I'm the only one. So when I go, like everyone's like, so like, they're always like excited to see me. I feel like they're always so kind to me. So then it's just like, oh, hi, you know, I call them by name, but I don't ever necessarily correct them. So I feel like I just know that that's not something that they will appreciate. So I'll like kind of like, especially if we're wrapping up a job and it's kind of like that punch list walk where you're like looking to check the details.
And it's a stretch to get them to finish those things anyway.
Right. So I know like part of them is like hating like, oh, here comes Reauna. Like, because they know I'm going to then tell Mark to correct these things. But there's like some things that are like clearly like, oh, let's like just straighten out this little outlet, or, you know, like little simple things like that, I'll say it. But if it's like other things that I feel like they might be kind of like hurt or offended by, I don't say it on the site and I don't say it to them. I wait till we leave and I actually tell Mark, and then Mark will relay that message. So
I want to talk about that because I feel like most people are going to be against what you said. And I want to talk about why I think it's amazing. So we had one of our mastermind girls who was getting ready to go in front of the city, and she was the main person doing the project. Her husband was like 10% involved. And it was a massive like old boys club, and her husband was the one that they all kept trying to talk to and all building the relationships with. So we can make one of two choices. You can decide to fight that and probably lose and have a really long, hard battle, or you can play to the strengths of your relationship. If we truly believe that when we get married, we become one person, one like God tells us we do, and we want to celebrate each other's strengths and like make that us as a team are better, why would you not let your husband be the one who does that and him lead that part of the business, since there's no friction with him doing it and it's so much more successful, which is what we talked to her about. Yes, we wish the world let you be the one to do that equally, but it doesn't. So do you want that battle right now, or do you want your project approved right now? Because if you want to fight that battle, we will so help you go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But if you want your project approved by tomorrow, you let your husband answer the questions, because that is the world we live in.
Yeah.
And so it works the same way on your job sites, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah, and actually do that too. Like, yeah, like once you get married, like you are like one person. And then for me, it's also like a personality thing. Like I don't like conflict and I don't like correcting people anyway. So even that for me is just like, I'd rather have Mark take care of it anyway. But I can see how that would be like really like a big struggle for a woman, especially like if she doesn't even have like, say like a female contractor who's not married and she like is doing this and she's running the company herself. Like how do you get the team, or like do you build a team that just doesn't have that like cultural like no woman's gonna tell me what to do, you know what I mean? Or does she just figure out how to like communicate with them so that they actually like look at her as an authoritative figure? You know what I mean? It's like I kind of feel for that woman, because what do you do in that case?
She's gonna have to have those battles as she builds that amazing team. Because even with real estate investing, we come across that, right? Mm-hmm. I remember I was speaking at an event and it was all men, and I was leaving and some of the people were asking me like, how'd you get here? You know, did you get it from your dad? Did your husband do this? And I was single at the time. And then when I went to leave and the valet was pulling my car up, they opened the passenger side of the door. And I was standing there by myself. I'm like, who's gonna drive the car? Like, who's gonna drive the car?
Who's getting in on the passenger side?
Who do you think is gonna drive the car? And so I think there's just some roles that are assumed that like women don't do them.
Yeah.
And so building that intentional team, I think in these situations is probably where it's at. But it's awesome that you have that balance with Mark. His goofy personality probably helps with some of those hard conversations.
No, at first he has a way of like
His like
being so complimentary to them.
Yeah.
If he does correct them, they don't take it like, you know, they're not upset. They don't take any offense to it. They're just like, oh yes, patron, yeah, no worries. Like, you know, and they take care of it. So I'm like, yeah, you keep doing that because they listen to you. Like if I come in here trying to like correct, they're gonna be like, you don't even know what you're talking about. Like, you know, just culturally, it's like, no, please don't come in here telling me what I need to do.
So how did y'all decide to have a construction company together?
So I feel like we didn't really decide that together. So what happened was I was working as an admin assistant at community college. Mark was working in sales at like a pest control company. So he was like in management and like sales training, and he was like a regional manager. So he was making decent money. And then he just got to a point where he was like really unhappy. Just like he was traveling a lot. He was overweight because he didn't have time to do anything else. He was like eating out all the time. And he just ethically didn't like some of the things that the company was doing, the way they would let go of certain people, keep other people, promote people versus other, you know, he just didn't like what he saw. And he was like, I have to get out of here. And he wanted to do his own thing. So he was talking, like, you know, we had been having these conversations. So finally he was like, you know what, I think I'm going to leave. I'm going to put in my notice, and then I'll, you know, get my contractor's license and start a construction company. So I was like, yeah. You do that, because I knew like I had a stable job. I wasn't making a ton of money, honestly. So it was going to be a stretch for us to get by with just my income. But he was like, well, I can pull out my 401k and, you know, that can get us by while I build this. So I was just like, okay, yeah, like I've got our benefits covered. Like I've got my retirement. Like, yeah, do that. Like we'll make it work. You know, we'll figure it out.
Did you have kids yet at this point?
Yes, we had all three already. So I think Coco, our youngest, she was like 2 at the time. So it was still just like, yeah, go do it. So he did, and then he got his contractor's license, and then he, you know, started this little company, and then he was getting like a job, and then he'd get another job. And he was like doing one job at a time, like on site all day, every day, like with the team, like working in the trenches. And then after about a year, he was like, hey, we're actually like getting a lot of calls now, you know, like the name's getting out, like we're getting referrals. He was like, I don't like on the admin side, the operations side, like he's like, I can't build it on my own. He was like, you're so good at that stuff. Why don't you leave your job and we can like build this together? And I was like, excuse me? Excuse me? Like, no, thank you. Like, because I actually really liked my job. I was like really happy being an admin assistant. I worked 5 minutes from home. I would like go to work, go home, not think about it. It was like not stressful. Everybody there loved me because I was good at what I did. You know what I mean? Like I was a good employee. I was proactive. So I was just like really happy. And I was like making enough money to, it's just like, it doesn't make sense for me to leave. That's so scary. Like, that's so risky. Why would we do that? So it was like months of him like, why would you stay? Like, why are you staying in a job where you have to be there all day when you can leave and we can build this together? You'll have like way more flexibility. Like, you don't have to ask for vacation. You don't have to ask for time off. And even with him saying those words to me, it was still like, but that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Because I was taught all through school, all through college, get a stable job, get something with benefits, get something with a good retirement. You know what I mean? Like, that's what was ingrained in me. So I like honestly left. Like, it was actually getting to the point where it was like not good for our marriage anymore because we disagreed so heavily on it. Like, I was scared to leave, didn't want to leave. And he was like not understanding, like, how can you not want to leave where we can like build this business together? Like, it'll be successful. Like, why are you not betting on us? And you're choosing to stay in this like,
all the conversations that we normally hear, right?
Right.
But you hadn't made that mindset shift yet.
I did not have that mindset shift.
There's so many things in our culture that teach us, you got to go to school, you got to get a good job, you got to have benefits, how are you going to pay your health insurance? There's so many things that teach us that. So unlearning that is not easy.
It wasn't. It was so stressful for me. It was so stressful because I'm like, no, this is not. And in my mind, like, I knew people did that. Of course, I knew that there are business owners and like heads of these big companies, right? Like, somebody had to start it. But just like in my mind, that wasn't me. You know what I mean? Like, those are those other people that do that. That's not for like me and my people. Like, we go work for these companies and then we have this, so it was a definite like mindset shift for me. And even me leaving, like, I kind of was dragging my feet. So like, I was praying about it. And I was like, I can't, like, this is clearly hurting our marriage at this point. So that's kind of like the thing that got me to kind of step away from it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to give this a chance. I prayed about it. I felt like it was a good move for me to leave, try it out, and my friends were telling me like, you can always go back.
Exactly. And I feel like that's the part that some people, they miss. You can, if you leave on good terms with the reputation that you had, you can either A, go back, or B, get another job. There's always another job to get.
Right.
And I think some people think of these as like indefinite, like decisions that can't be changed. Because if you start the business, like worst case scenario, right? You start the business and it doesn't work out, you go back to what you were doing.
Right.
But that never connects, right?
It doesn't. And I think my best friend actually told me that because I was, talking it through, and she was like, Reauna, like, okay, you leave, say it fails. And she's like, which I don't think it will. She was just like, say it fails or you hate it. She was like, can't you just go back? And I was like, yeah. And so after she said that too, that almost gave me like, okay, she was like, I'm making this a way bigger deal than it needs to be. So I left, and the first year, honestly, like, I was lost. I was lost because I was so used to being told like what to do, what projects to work on, what my deadlines were, what the priorities were, you know what I mean? So I could get things done, but I was used to being guided on those things. So completely leaving, and then me having to make those decisions for this construction company. Mind you, I know nothing about construction. I don't know how to do workers' comp insurance. I don't know how to get general liability insurance. And these are all things I had to learn. And it was such a big learning curve for me, and it was so uncomfortable. I think after the first 6 months, I started like looking like on a job search to just go back into a W-2 because I was so lost. And I was like, I don't like this. Then I was like used to being like around my friends all the time at work. And then now I'm like kind of like isolated. I had Mark, but I was really just like by myself at the computer trying to figure out what it is I'm supposed to do. And I was like, I felt isolated, you know what I mean? And it was like a big transition for me.
Listen, y'all, I know today's episode is inspiring, but inspiration alone will never carry us to our ultimate goals. That's why I started the Society of Entrepreneurial Women. It's a mastermind for high-performing female investors and entrepreneurs who are living their lives unapologetically. In a world where most people don't get us, or they try to keep us confined in a small box, the Society exists to turn off the brakes and set you free. We have weekly calls covering investing, wealth building, health, relationships, family, family, and a whole lot more. We have small tribes to hold each other accountable to our goals. We have in-person, ladies-only retreats to disconnect and drive each other towards our dreams. And most importantly, this is a community where you can be unapologetically you. Celebrate your wins, scream your successes from the top of the rooftop, become best friends with women who get you. We're 3 years in, and I can honestly say my best friends today are all from the society. Click the link in the show notes to learn more.
I feel like that it's not talked about enough, because you're right. Most of us, whether you work for somewhere corporate or even a small business, there are usually requirements of you. There was a job description that talked about exactly what you're going to do. There is someone above you to ask questions to when you aren't quite sure or you're second guessing yourself. Like there's someone else. Or there is like a system or a rule or a something and now you're in the position to have to create those.
Right. And it honestly, like when I was like in, like still working at the college and I was like doing all this work, in my mind, I would be like, I'm the one that's doing all this work. Like why are like my bosses getting paid all this money? I'm the one that's doing everything. And then once I like went off on my own and I'm supposed to make all these decisions, I was like, oh. I totally get why they make that salary now. I was like, yeah, I was the busy bee doing all the work, but they have like all these decisions that they need to make.
Stress and
They're
pressure.
doing the strategizing of what needs to be done when, and the stress and the managing of all the people. And I was like, I get it now. And then I also like, you know, like once it took me a good 6 months to a year to actually like get settled and be like, okay, now I kind of get what I'm doing. I understand the vision for what needs to be done. Now I'm like able to build my schedule and manage my time.
How are you coping with how uncomfortable you are though?
What was I doing? I think I coped with it by looking for jobs and just telling myself like, I'm just gonna find another job and go back to work. That's kind of like how I coped with it. You know, I just kept thinking like, well, this isn't my backup plan. Like I'm still trying to figure this out in the meantime until I find something. So in the midst, and I did apply to a few jobs and I just didn't hear back. I didn't hear back from them. And I wasn't quite ready to go back to.
Talk about God saying no. No one's calling you back.
No one's calling me. And I'm telling you, I'm a good employee. Like I show up, I do what I'm supposed to do. Like I don't understand why I'm not getting called back. And I could have gone back to where I was already, but I like wasn't ready for that like shame. Like, oh, so it didn't work out, Reauna, huh? You tried to leave and so yeah. But so it kept me, you know, working on Five Walnut Construction for another few months. And then I started feeling like, oh, like I started actually seeing the fruits of some of my labor, you know, like starting an Instagram account, because before it was just all word of mouth. So starting Instagram, and then like people actually started like contacting us too. They're like, oh, can you come give me an estimate? And I was like, oh, this is working. Like something I'm doing is actually like generating revenue for this company. So I was like, oh, maybe I like am valuable. Like maybe I am a valuable asset, because I think that's what I was struggling with too, is like, I'm not providing any value to this. Like Mark is the contractor, the team is doing the actual work, and I'm over here shuffling papers around and I don't know what I'm doing. So I think it was at that point where it's like, oh no, like I am making a difference. Like our sales are going way up now because of like the marketing and like just like the client communication was better.
And so how has that business changed from when you and Mark were guessing to where you are today, where you have enough cash flow, you're buying rentals, and you have a whole different business now?
Mentorship. I mean, like we were fumbling around on our own for a little while. And then once I joined the society, Mark joined another group for him. And so like we're in two separate groups getting information and bringing it back together. And then like, I didn't even know what a CRM was. I think at one of the hot seat sessions that we did at one of the retreats, I think someone was like, oh, well, what CRM do you use? And I said, what now? And I was like so embarrassed to ask me, because they said it like I should know what it is. Like, well, what CRM do you use? And I had to like, at first I was gonna try to fake it and be like, oh, well, and then I was like, I don't even know what to say. So I was just like, I don't know what that is. You know, like.
Which is the beauty, because right, the girls are, the second you say that, they tell you this like beautiful explanation of what and why.
They were so gracious. Nobody made a face, nobody giggled, nobody like made a smirk, you know what I mean? They're just like, oh, like, you know, told me what it was and they explained it. And I was like, why don't we have that? And I'm like, how do you find that?
I think the women do that? I think it's because everyone truly wants to help each other, and they're asking you questions looking for that light bulb moment of where your disconnect is, because none of us know your business like you do, right?
Yeah.
So we don't know those missing links. But the way hot seats are set up, where they keep asking you questions, we're looking for that light bulb of like, this is what she needs.
Yeah.
This is what she needs.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting how simple some of those can be and how much they can change your business.
Oh, it's like, I mean, I've learned so much just about basic business that has completely like changed our business and like generated more revenue and just like made things run smoother. Like learning about operations, learning how to hire, when to hire, like who to hire, you know what I mean? And now I love owning a business. I love entrepreneurship. And at this point, I'm just like, I'm like, no, there's so many of these people that are caught up in these W-2 positions because that's all they know. And they don't know that there is something so much bigger out there that they can be doing, where they have like this freedom and they have like the ability to build something on their own terms, the way they want it. They can run a business the way they want to, but they just don't even know.
Do you think there's anything anyone could have said to you back then that would have changed your mind, or you had to stumble through it on your own?
That would have changed my mind to like go forward and do entrepreneurship or stay at the W-2?
That would have caused you to move forward with the entrepreneurship quicker?
No. I think I had to stumble through it. And then actually like experience it to know. Because like I said, I knew there were entrepreneurs out there, and I would always kind of look at them like, oh, like, why are they working so hard to like, you know what I mean? I would think that like, well, why are they working so hard to do that, where they could just like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wasn't just like, my mindset was so different back then. And I truly just want everybody to know, like, anybody can like, like find something that you're good at, find something that you're passionate about, and like turn it into a business. Like anybody can do it. Like you just have to believe that you can do it, and you have to do it. Because I also know people who like have all these ideas and they talk about it and they talk about it and they talk about it and they just never do anything about it. You know what I mean? They just talk about it, but they're like, oh no, but like, that's not a safe like thing, or I can't really do it. It's just like, they just have fun like imagining. But it's like, if you just shift your mind, like you actually can do that. You know what I mean? And I just really want, like, I want everybody to know, because if Mark didn't pull me away, you know what I mean? I would still be happily content working at the community college as an admin assistant. Like my dream was to just reach six figures. Like when I heard of people making like 80K, in my mind, I was like, dang, like, how do you do that? Because I felt like I was like working so hard and I was good at what I did, but I was capped at like maybe 70K, you know, like as an admin assistant where I was. And I remember thinking like, man, if I could just like get something, like if I can get like an executive admin assistant position that pays like six figures, then like I've really made it.
What kind of opens your eyes to a world of other possibilities that you didn't know? Think about like the goals you were dreaming up, how different they are now than they were then. Yeah. Speaking of goals you're dreaming up, you and your husband are getting ready to host your first marriage retreat.
Yes, I am so excited. We are.
What made you want to do this to begin with?
So one is we were, a lot of my close friends are not married. They're like either a single mom or they're just single. And so like Mark and I don't have a lot of like married couple friends where we both like truly like connect with the wife and the husband. And we figured this out because I'm thinking like we have all these friends, because we do have like Mark has like friends and they're married, and we like go to parties together and we go to kids parties and, you know, like have Christmas parties and stuff. So in my mind, I was like, oh, like we have a ton of friends, you know what I mean? And then we started like realized that we really liked camping, and we would just go as a family. And then we're like, it would be so fun to like do this with like other families where like our kids have other kids to play with on these camping trips. So Mark and I were talking about, they were like, yeah, like let's like plan something for next summer. Like who would we invite? And we started like thinking about it. And we were like, because we were like, yeah, we should invite like some of our married friends with kids. And we're like, dang, we don't even really have anybody that we can invite that we feel like we would really have fun with camping, that we're like kind of like the same type of lifestyle, same type of like parenting, you know what I mean, where it wouldn't be awkward. And we kind of came out, and I was like, dang, babe, we really don't have like a lot of like close friends to us that are like married with kids. Like all of our friends are single, or they're like single moms. So that was one thing. So it was like, one is like, man, let's get some like married couples together. We can like really bond and like connect. And then the other thing was just people get so busy, and we have friends who are just like so busy, and they're like talking to Mark, complaining about their wives. And like in my mind, I'm just like, oh, they just need like some time away to connect. They're just like so stressed and so busy talking about kids' schedules, talking about work, talking about finances, that they've like forgot what it's like to like have fun and like connect with each other. So we're like, oh, like we should just do a marriage retreat where everyone can come. Like, one, we can make some friends. And two, like we can actually like have like some guided sessions that will like force these husbands and wives, like, yeah, it'll feel like a vacation. It's going to feel like you're like getting connected with other couples, but there's also going to be so much like just connection time with just you and your spouse, where you're given things to talk about, given things to discuss. That's like truly just going to put you on a deeper level. Because I feel like sometimes too in marriage, you get so like on autopilot, you know what I mean? Like, especially if you have kids, you know, like everything's like kids schedules, then your work schedule, then just like, what are we having for dinner? Where are we going to go on vacation? And then who has time to really sit and ask each other deep questions? So if you're not really like growing deeper with each other, the more years you're married, you're either staying the same, which also doesn't make sense. Because if you're, you know, like spending all this time together, why are you not getting closer? And then the other thing is, well, then if you're not getting closer, then you're actually, maybe you're getting further apart. And that's why I think there's people who you hear they've been married like 25 years, 30 years, their kids are adults and moved out the house and now they're getting a divorce. You know, like I would always be like, huh? Like, how does that happen? You've like spent all this time together.
Yeah, most of your life spent together.
And now it's just like, no, like we've just grown apart.
So
you know
what
I mean?
made y'all feel like you were qualified to do something like that?
I don't feel like I'm qualified at all. So like, I want to make it clear, like this marriage retreat is not Mark and I saying like we have a perfect marriage and we can like help you have a perfect marriage too, because we don't. The reason we know, like we want to do this is because we know that we needed this. Because there was like probably years like 3 through 5, like that year when he was like trying to pull me away from my job and I didn't want to go, like those years were actually, and a couple years before that were really hard just on our marriage. Like we were just like bumping heads on so many things. And like when he was traveling for work all the time, we just like, I felt like I was taking care of the kids by myself. Like he was off working. Like we just had no time to connect. And it was like really taking a toll on our marriage. Like he was honestly just getting on my nerves. Like he could have like told me he wanted a divorce and I would have been like, good. You know what I mean? I would have been like, hallelujah, thank you. I'm not the one that had to say it. You know what I mean?
So we have a mutual friend, and her and her husband have been married for a really long time. And they always say to each other that they've made it because neither one of them gave up at the same time.
Yes, no, I tell Mark that all the time. I already tell my friends that too. I'm like, the reason why we didn't get divorced was because it had to have been God, right? It had to have been God, because on any given day where he was like done with me, I was like, oh no, like we're gonna make this work, like this, no. And anytime like I was really done with him, he was like, oh no, like, you know, and then he started putting in extra effort, which is crazy, right? Like you would like, but it just kept going back and forth until finally like I think I was so done at some point that Mark actually like really stepped it up, and he was giving like 200% just to like make things work with us, because he could see that I was like really about to walk out the door. So I think he got like this, and I don't even remember what it's called, but it was like this couples devotional that we would like sit down and do like every evening for like a couple weeks. And I remember telling him, he'd be like, okay, let's do our devotional. I'm like, I told him, I looked him in the eye and I said, I'm telling you, I'm done. I was like, since I'm still like physically here, I'll sit down and do this little devotional with you, but it's not gonna work. Like I remember telling him that, like I was so done. Somehow, just like through prayer, doing this devotional that I didn't even think was gonna help or that I wanted to do, like it kind of just brought up some questions that like brought us closer, had me like realizing like, oh, you thought this, I didn't even realize you were, you know, like coming from that like perspective, or like, oh, that's why you did that, because you thought this and I didn't even mean, you know what I mean? So it brought us really closer. And then I got cancer, and then that really brought us closer. And then I think like after, because you know, like I had a partial hysterectomy because I had cervical cancer. So, you know, that there was like a healing period after my surgery. So there was like no intimacy or anything like that with us. So like the moment I was like cleared, where it's like, okay, no, like you're good to go, like with everything, he was like, hey, let's like, why don't we like celebrate? Like we should go take a trip. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So we like took the trip, just the two of us. I think we went to Vegas, and we had like the best time. And I was like, oh, we just needed like some one-on-one time without kids.
So I told you this last night when we were talking about your retreat, and it is not something that people want to say or they want to hear, but sometimes I think couples just like are not having enough sex, and like as women, we don't always want to hear that, like, you got to be having sex with your husband.
Yeah.
If you want the rest of it to work.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like doing things you don't want to do. I mean, like, maybe you need some therapy in that area, because some of us have some traumas that we've got to overcome in order for that to be a healthy part of our marriage.
Yeah.
And there's some really great marriage books that walk you through. That is one of the most important aspects of your marriage. It is a gift that God gave us, and it is the one thing we don't share with other people. We kiss our kids, some of us, right? We hug other people, we have conversations with other people, we share a lot of other things with other people, but that's supposed to be the one thing that you don't. And so if you're not having that one thing, you are no more than friends.
Dang.
And
I haven't heard anyone put it that way. That's like,
I don't think
that's a good way to
people
say
want
it.
to hear that, and it's pretty controversial. So sometimes it's personal therapy that we need to overcome it, because and again, this is like more than some people want to talk about, but when you like truly learn to enjoy the like intimacy with your partner, you want that. It's not a chore anymore. Yes, there's days that like don't work out, right? But when you truly learn to enjoy that part, you are not at each other's throats. It's easier to forgive each other. They are more patient with us. They are more willing to help. And I don't know about you, but my like number one love language is somebody helping me, like doing the stuff. Like, what is it? Acts of service, right? Because it probably comes from the years of being 7 years as a single mom, doing all the things by myself. I feel loved when my husband helps me. But he is not as willing to help me if I'm not having sex with him, which is not what people want to hear, but it's true.
It is, and Mark actually said this to me too, because in that time where we were having like so much friction, he was like, babe, think about it. He was like, also like, we're like not really having sex. Like we're not, I was just so frustrated with him, so I didn't want to do anything. He was like, we're not getting closer, because, you know what I mean? And then it's just like, when we are like having like regular like intimate time, it's like, like I feel like there's just like something that happens, like chemicals are released, like just like the touch, like you're so much easier to forgive, like you're happier, you know what I mean? Like the chemistry is just like stronger between the both of you.
But we should also talk about like, women are not like men. We aren't just like ready to go.
Right.
There's a really great book called His Needs, Her Needs. And it talks about how women need the affection and the man to like be nice to her and like actually have like what we think of as like that courtship for her to be ready and willing to be in that position. And men aren't always patient and take the time to set that up. And then women are like, I'm not interested in that, right? Like, because they were primed. And so it's like the chicken before the egg, right? But then once you're in this position that you're talking about and you're mad at each other, nobody wants to do the thing that makes the other person do the thing. And so we're just stuck in this limbo. So that book is so freaking amazing because it walks you through like some of the top things. And one thing that I noticed from Instagram, and I could be totally wrong, but I think that you and Mark get right, is in that book, it talks about becoming recreational best friends with each other. And I see y'all posting pictures at the gym together. I see you going to different events together, and you seem to have really like nailed it with the becoming recreational best friends. And they talk about that as like the second need that men have.
Really?
And y'all seem to have naturally gotten this like recreational best friendship.
You know, yes, we do. We enjoy a lot of the same things. We go to the same gym so we can work out together, which none of that would have ever happened if I was still at my other job, working a W-2. The only reason we have time for that is because...
Who would have ever thought that the thing that you were so scared to do would be what made your marriage so amazing?
Had no idea. And that's what I'm saying, like, I had no idea. But wait, but I do want to go back to the sex thing real quick, because last night we were talking and you said at the marriage retreat, you suggested that we have a sex therapist. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So anyway, some of the girls at lunch were asking me like about the marriage retreat. And they're like, oh, like, well, what kind of sessions are you going to do? And I was like, well, we were going to do this, this, and this. But you know, like Heather suggested that we also have like a sex therapist. And nobody was like, oh, awkward. Everyone was just like, yes,
nobody's
like
gonna
everybody
ask for it,
leaned in and was
but
like,
they are going
yes,
to
like,
show up to it.
100%. Everyone that
Because
was like
it's
right
such a taboo
around.
topic for our culture for some reason.
Yes.
And so it gets a bad reputation, but I think that's like more people I think need that than they realize.
Yeah.
Ladies, it's time to redefine the conference experience with the Society of Entrepreneurial Women Retreats. Step inside a world tailored for women just like you, where you can lead, learn, and unwind in style. Our retreats offer everything from insightful investing sessions to fun activities like salsa dancing, boat cruises, food tours, and so much more, ensuring you come back not just inspired, but truly refreshed. Join a community that celebrates you wholly and supports your every endeavor. Ready for a retreat that changes the game? Visit the link in our show notes and find out how you can be part of this exclusive experience.
So changing gears a little bit, I'm curious, I've always wanted to ask you this. My daughters are half white, half Chinese, and I meet other women who have grown up and they are of some type of mixed race, and they feel like they aren't, if we use my case, they aren't white enough or they aren't Chinese enough, and so they never like fit in one area or the other. I've always had this theory or hypothesis that as I talked to these women, one of the cultures was suppressed. They were like forced to try and behave more like they were white or more like they were Chinese. And they didn't embrace both sides. So my husband and I are working really hard to like truly celebrate both of them, like being American and being Chinese. Like we celebrate the holidays, we like really embrace the foods and the differences in our cultures, as opposed to like trying to make them one or the other. How do you think your parents raised you that caused you to not feel that way as an adult?
Doing what you're doing. So I celebrated Chinese New Year. We would have like these Saturday night dinners at my grandma's house on my dad's side. My dad's Chinese. And we would have like these traditional Chinese meals. Like I didn't speak Chinese growing up, but my grandparents did. They like came from China. So whenever I would go over to their house, they're like speaking to me in Chinese, but also speaking to me in broken English, you know what I mean? Because English was their second language. So I was around like my Chinese side quite a bit. And then on my mom's side, who's Black, I also spent a ton of time with them as well, you know what I mean? So I actually got to spend a lot of time with both sides of my family and felt love from both sides, you know what I mean? And then I'm not gonna like just lie and say like, oh, like I never had any issues with like my identity or whatever like that, because like growing up in school, a lot of my friends were white just because of the school that I went to, and that's who was around me. I also had Black friends too, but like my like best friend, like growing up, like she was white. And then I remember when I got to middle school, I was hanging around like my group of friends, like a lot of them were white. And then I remember like, I also had Black friends, but like I remember some of my Black friends saying like, Reauna, like how come you don't like have more Black friends? Like why aren't you hanging out like over here with us or whatever? And I was just like, oh, like I don't really care who I hang out with. Like I'm just like these are people who went to elementary school, so I'm just like hanging out with them, you know what I mean? But so I would have like little comments like that.
Okay, but here's the thing. I think that's where the culture side is wrong, right? Because your parents had raised you to embrace all of it, you didn't have a problem with whatever anybody was. Because where we live in South Florida now, it's primarily people who've immigrated here. A lot of them are first generation. And being white, we don't really fit in there. Because the white people are Jewish, and the Jewish people seem to stick with their community. There's the Haitian community that have immigrated from Haiti. We've got the Cubans who have come from Cuba. They stick together. And so there's all these pockets of people who are really, like you're in this melting pot, which seems like, oh, everything's gonna be so cultured, but they really stay in their own lanes and don't come together a lot. And so that's what you were seeing, right? You were seeing the groups of people together that didn't come together, but your family had taught you that they didn't need to be that way.
Right. So I was just like, oh no, like I'll hang out with whoever, you know what I mean? So I really can like get along with anybody. Like I don't care. And at this point, I just kind of think of myself as like mixed, you know what I mean?
Well,
like,
and then your husband's Mexican.
And my husband's Mexican. So we're just like all a mixed bag of things, right? My kids are Mexican, Chinese, and Black. So luckily we live in Long Beach, California, which is pretty diverse. And there's like a lot of interracial marriage and like a lot of kids that go to their school that are mixed, you know what I mean? So it's not like, I don't feel like they feel any type of like isolation or like they don't belong, because it's just like, I feel like the more time that goes by, the more people are just mixed. You know what I mean? Like that's just kind of how it is. There's like so much of it, at least where I live. So.
And talking about families, I see your mom on Instagram, and she's how old?
73.
And she's like bench pressing more than I weigh. Maybe she's squatting in the videos. I think she's squatting.
She does it all.
How did you get your mom? I'm assuming you had something to do with that.
So
how did you get her in the gym?
Okay. So Mark, when he was going, like after he left his job and started the construction company, like I said, he was like overweight because he was traveling a lot. He was like just whatever. And also like our marriage was not good. So he just knew he needed something. So he got this personal trainer, and he was amazing. And I saw like how quickly he got into shape, how his eating habits changed, like how much healthier he was, how much more energy he had. So then I was like, he was asking me, he was like, well, do you want to go? The trainer was like really expensive. He's like $500 a month. So to me, that was like craziness, because it was like, but I could just like learn. Well, you could just tell me what you're doing, and then I could just do that.
I could do the video.
Right. Right. Or I could like get free YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And like I was that person who didn't want to pay for anything, before my mindset changed. I was like, no, why would I like pay for something that I could easily just learn by watching YouTube or like reading a book or whatever. But anyways, Mark was like, look, you should just even try it for a few months. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'll go for like 3 or 4 months, just learn what I need to learn. And then like, I'll, do it on my own. So anyways, I went to this trainer, and it completely changed my life. Again, like here's another like chapter of my life where like I wasn't like completely like out of shape. I grew up playing sports, but I definitely wasn't that strong. I definitely didn't have that much energy because I wasn't like eating properly.
And now you're Miss Fitness.
And I just love to lift weights, and I never did before. He like completely changed me. So like I have more energy, I'm eating healthier. So anyways, my mom, once Mark went through it, then I went through it. And in such a short amount of time, like we were completely like, our physique changed. Like she could see like, my face was thinner. Like I wasn't like so puffy anymore. You know what I mean? She like saw it. She was like, does he work with seniors? Like, do you think I could do it? And he's actually like really hard to get in with. He has like such a long waiting list because he's so good at what he does. And he like, anybody that goes to him, he like really gets them into great shape. And if you're not doing what he's telling you to do and you're not making progress, you're out. You know what I mean? So he gets results. So my mom was like, well, can I eat? So I like helped her write an email to him, and I like prepped him. I was like, hey, Molly, like my mom's she's gonna reach out to you. She wants to train. He was like, oh, what? So anyways, she like sent him an email, and she was just telling him like, I've tried everything. Cause she did, like growing up, my mom was always overweight. And I remember it always being the struggle where she was like trying to lose weight, and she just never did. So, and she did it all. She did like Atkins. She did Lindora. She did Jenny Craig. I watched her just do so many different things, and just like nothing worked for her. So she told him all of this in the email. So, and he told me, he was like, you know what, like I read her email, like I'm going to get her in. So he like got her in like maybe like a month or two later. And since then she's lost, like, I don't even know how much she's lost. She's lost like over 50 pounds. She's like strong. She can like,
strong.
She can deadlift as much as I do.
Does she have an Instagram account?
She does, but not really.
She needs like to seriously inspire older women.
I'll tell her.
We need that.
Yeah.
Because my mom is in her 60s, and similar, like we've all had the diets and all of the things, and she sees women who are fit and she thinks, oh, I've gone through menopause, I can't do that, or it just doesn't work for me. Like, and most of the women that they see are options to see on social media are 25 years old. I just made a Instagram video like to make fun of them. Because it's like our 24 hours are not the same. Because every 25-year-old influencer with 6 packs is like, we all have 24 hours in a day.
Kids yet,
You haven't had kids yet. You don't have to pay bills. You've got like 6 roommates. Maybe you live in your parents' basement. And they're still buying your groceries and paying for all your protein you're taking in.
You got all kinds of time to work out.
Right.
Yeah.
And so our 24 hours are not the same. And I feel like older women start feeling like they don't have the 24 hours aren't the same anymore. They're like, our bodies aren't the same. So your mom is like a true testament to that.
I'm gonna tell her, because everybody that like sometimes we'll just be out somewhere and they'll be like, oh, you're the one that goes to Motivate, like the gym.
Yeah.
And they're like, I see you on Instagram, and she's always like, huh? Because she doesn't even like go on Instagram and know. But yeah, like lifting weights and like building muscle like can still happen in your 70s. I've seen it. Like I've seen her. Like she's so strong.
I love that. How about your dad? Is he on board?
We got him on board for like 2 months, and then he was like, that's not for me. So
That's okay.
for him, actually, he'll like work out a little bit, but like them being on him about like his diet and like what he shouldn't eat and what he was like not having it. So we're trying to get him, like, even if he doesn't go like back to the trainer, like just trying to get him on some sort of like be more active, because he's like a homebody now.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and my mom likes to be out and about, so we're trying to be like, Dad, like you gotta do something, get more energy, and so
I love
we're
that.
we're working on him.
For the listeners who are interested in learning more about you and following your journey, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Reauna Lopez. Just my name.
Well, Reauna, this was fun.
Thank you, Heather.
Thanks for being here with me today.
Remember, authenticity is your superpower. Stay unapologetically yourself, and let's continue embracing our uniqueness together. Make sure you hit that follow button so you don't miss the next episode.